All right, welcome back to another episode of Bitfinex Talks. I'm your host, Ricardo Martinez. Today, I have a very special guest. I'm here with Jakov, the master of DeFi from the Lido project. Jakov, how are you today?
Thank you, Ricardo. Thank you for the introduction. I'm doing really well.
Nice. Well, I'm very happy to have you with us here on the show today. My first question to start off the podcast is, can you tell us a little bit about the story behind Lido's inception and what the primary vision for the project is? How did it all get started?
Sure. I mean, the story is pretty simple, I would say, because whoever is familiar with Ethereum and the process of moving to the proof of stake system knows the hurdles and basically the barrier to entry if you want to actually stake and support decentralization, earn some rewards, and all the things that are coming with proof of stake. So for Ethereum specifically, that barrier means that first you need to have quite a lot of ETH for a regular retail user. 32 ETH is pretty steep barrier, but also it's not only about the financial side. You also need to have expertise, technical expertise. So that means that you will need to spin up your own validator, maintain it, upgrade it, follow all the updates with regards to protocol, and not everyone can do that. So, and also another thing that is not the case anymore, that is with regards to withdrawals. So initially, users who wanted to stake were locking up their ETH, and they were basically trusting the development of the protocol that sometime in the future they will be able to unstake the validator and get ETH along with rewards back to their wallets, to the execution layer, what we call. So Lido comes here with a great solution for basically all of these issues. Lido is a staking middleware, so a minimal layer above the protocol staking, which allows users to participate in staking and decentralizing, securing Ethereum with any amount of ETH they have. So it can be more than 32, it can be less than 32 ETH. And though in the beginning withdrawals were also not enabled in Lido, whenever users stake their ETH, they are immediately issued another token, which is called staked ETH, STETH. And that token is liquid. It's fully transferable because it lives on the execution layer, which means that as long as there's sufficient liquidity on the secondary markets, users were actually able to exit their position and claim ETH or any other token back. So that's the primary vision of Lido that is still the North Star of all Lido contributors and participants of the Lido DAO.
You mentioned that Lido started when people were unable to withdraw their ETH. Since the ability to withdraw has been implemented, would you say that staking has increased or decreased?
Oh, well, we are still seeing the increase of staking. Obviously, I mean, this is my opinion. Before withdrawals were enabled, staking was pretty much reserved only for users who really trust the ecosystem. So basically, you're committing your funds somewhere where you're trusting that in the future developments, you'll be able to get your funds back. Obviously, liquid staking is helping with that. But now, since withdrawals are enabled, we as a community, Ethereum community, passed significant milestone. Withdrawals are enabled, and now everybody has more confidence to the system. So that's why I think the utilization of staking protocols is even higher, and it's just going to grow.
I know that Lido isn't the only solution for staking your ETH, but how does Lido stand apart? What does it do to differentiate itself from other staking solutions?
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about staking solutions, it is not only liquid staking solutions. You have some solutions that are just abstracting the infrastructure part for you. So basically services that are providing a node for you, but you still need to have 32 ETH. That is super good for somebody who just doesn't want to run its own hardware, but would still like to participate as a solo staker without any liquid staking or any liquidity. And then we have protocols that are offering pool staking. Then we have also liquid staking, not just Lido. There are also some other projects doing that. But when we're talking about liquid staking, the advantages of liquid staking protocols are that you can have both staking rewards, validator rewards, and at the same time, you can use the value of your position in a composable way between all different ecosystems in blockchain, which is super exciting because previously you would basically have to choose, okay, do I want to lock up my ETH somewhere in the DeFi and use it there, or do I want to stake it? Now you can do both. And then if we are talking about what are the advantages of Lido staked ETH compared to some other projects in the liquid staking niche, well, since we are talking about liquid staking tokens, the biggest advantage is liquidity. If you take a look at the numbers on different networks, Lido staked ETH has by far the biggest liquidity. And that is really important for multiple reasons. Well, for example, just purely like allowing exits and entries to the position with very low price impact, also building on top. So if you want to use staked ETH as a collateral, which is a very popular way to use staked ETH, in order to get like sufficiently high supply caps without risking bad debt in money markets, in lending markets, you need quite a lot of liquidity so you can actually process all of these liquidations. And that's where Lido staked ETH with its liquidity is really on top of the ecosystem. Along with some other things that are not only purely DeFi related, but if you're following the developments within a DAO, within the community, Lido community and Lido contributors are really working hard to support that process of decentralization. Why I'm saying process of decentralization, because you cannot say that something is fully decentralized or something is fully centralized. Okay, sometimes you can say that something is pretty centralized, but to be decentralized, it's a process, because whenever you're decentralizing more, you're just pushing that centralization part somewhere else, and that part you can always decentralize more. So that's where we are, for example, coming up with super interesting mechanisms like DVT module, about which I can talk more later, but essentially it allows more node operators to join, offers more resilience of the entire system, and stuff like that.
We hear a lot of things about like hacks in DeFi and in the Ethereum ecosystem. What is Lido doing to secure the safety and the integrity of user assets that are staked with Lido?
Oh, a lot of things. Honestly, a lot of things. First, from the purely technical standpoint, every piece of software, every line of code goes through a really thorough process of multiple internal reviews, audits. Then there is a pretty strong bug bounty program on Immunify that is active all the time. So, for example, for Lido V2 version, which was when withdrawals were introduced, it was I would say the most significant step in Lido software development. The code base underwent 9 independent audits, which I think is still holding the record in the space. And then along with that, there is, as I said, strong bug bounty program, which I think is really important, because no matter how many audits you do by the top tier companies, there's always a possibility that some small vulnerability will sneak out, and having something that is active all the time and attracts professionals, penetration testers, security experts is always good. And then also on another side, the security is also improved by having a really good quality node operator set. So initially, Lido onboarded and is still onboarding new node operators in waves. And these node operators that are currently, there are 37 of them. These are all staking professionals. They are doing, they're running validators for their business, and by ensuring a really high quality validator set, they are the core component of the protocol, and the entire protocol is more resilient and it's less likely that users will underwent slashing and negative rebates of staked ETH.
What are some of the biggest challenges that Lido has faced, and how have you guys kind of overcome those challenges?
Well, I would say, again, we can start from the technical point of view. I think the biggest challenge was the release of Lido version 2 for multiple reasons. The upgrade is really complex, but also the timeline of the upgrade or the enabling of withdrawals was uncertain. And the timeline actually moved unexpectedly a bit before than we were expecting it, which meant that pretty much everybody went into the full focus mode and really tried the best to deliver the Lido version 2 on time, along with audits and everything. And thankfully, everything went as planned. But then on another side, something that we are continuously addressing, I wouldn't say it's a challenge. It's more of a thing that necessarily comes with having a protocol that is leading in the space, and that is community feedback. To anybody who is following the community, either on crypto Twitter or on forums, Lido is constantly being addressed as too big to fail, centralized, stuff like that. And the best way to prevent and surpass those challenges is actually by educating people, which is something that we are continuously working. You can never be good enough. You can always improve in the educational part, and that is something where we are working really hard. And same goes for also going outside of the let's say DeFi space. One of the things we really are working hard now is expanding out, reaching out institutional clients, especially when we are not talking about Web3 native clients. Education takes a huge part there. It's the most important part.
Earlier, you mentioned STETH, which is the staking token for Ethereum, and then there's also the LDO token. Can you kind of tell us what the role of the LDO token is and how it fits into the Lido ecosystem?
Yes, so LDO token is purely a governance token. It's not meant to have any value. Obviously, value is gained on the secondary market because different users have different opinions about it and can address certain value to it. But it's not meant to be that. It's meant to be held by holders who are believing and want to influence the direction where the DAO is going. So it basically just that. I can talk about the governance processes inside the Lido DAO,
do.
Which I think is really interesting. I think Lido DAO is probably the most developed DAO in the industry. Over time, the processes became, at the same time, more complex, but I would say not complex for users or voters. I would say maybe more robust and offer more flexibility for certain things. So the regular process for token holders and to move a DAO in a certain direction, it first starts from the forum discussion. There's Lido Research Forum. It's an open forum. Anybody can register. You don't have. It's not like gatekept or locked. You don't need to have LDOs. You don't need to have staked ETH. Anybody can register, and there you can put up a proposal or start a discussion about something that you want to do. The whole point is to kind of take the idea that is still maybe rough around the edges, and with the community feedback, polish it. And once it's polished, once it receives like a positive community feedback on the forums, then it can be posted on Snapshot for voting. And Snapshot is the off-chain component. So you need to have LDOs to vote there, but the outcome is not something that will trigger an action on-chain, where, for example, certain things that require let's say, protocol upgrade, like some kind of smart contract interaction, or transfer of the funds from the DAO treasury, that's where Aragon contracts are used. So it's fully on chain. It's fully on chain process. For Snapshot, it's important to say that there is a minimum of 5% of total supply of LDO required to be to vote on a certain proposal to even reach the quorum. So even though the proposal might have like 99% alignment for one decision, if there is no 50 million of LDO that voted on a proposal, the proposal will close without passing. So it needs to be restarted. And sometimes, and this is not just a problem with Lido DAO, sometimes this is a general problem within DAOs. It's really hard to get enough voters to vote on a proposal. That's why we set up a regular cadence, like voting calendar, where all the LDO holders can prepare and say, okay, in next 2 weeks, I need to be ready to review a certain proposal and give my opinion to it. And after we did that change, it improved the success rate of votes by a lot. But still, this is not blocking anybody to propose a new Snapshot proposal at any time. The only barrier is to have 1,000 LDO in your wallet, and the only reason for that barrier is to avoid spam proposals. So you need to have some, let's say, stake inside to propose something. And then there are other voted in committees, for example, that have certain very specifically set lists of permissions they can do. For example, there is a Lego, which is a grant committee. They are the committee inside the DAO that is reviewing certain proposals and then deciding, depending on the amount that is requested from the grant for the grant, if a certain team will get the grant or no, and then of course evaluating the outcome and stuff like that. There's also Lido Liquidity Observation Lab, which is also voted in committee that is responsible for ensuring sufficient liquidity in decentralized exchanges across different layer 1s and layer 2s. And lastly, one thing that was customly developed inside Lido DAO by Lido Tech contributors is easy tracks, which is another way to kind of avoid restarting of proposals. It's basically optimistic voting. So what happens is there are certain tracks that by default, when somebody proposes, will be approved. But if somebody posts a veto, then the proposal will be blocked. The proposal will be stopped. And that is, for example, used for funding a liquidity observation lab committee that is voted in, so they can have enough funds to fund certain projects.
Aside from the proposal calendar that you mentioned, is there any other way to incentivize people to actually vote and review the proposals?
Honestly, there might be mechanics that could be used. I don't think there are good mechanics. You don't want to create a system that can be gamed, for example. You don't want to pay people to vote. That does not make a lot of sense. So far, what is really important is to be really loud about the things that are happening. You also don't want to kind of push things under the radar, because you might not get the opinion of people that would actually like to give opinion or might be experts in certain topic. So whenever something is happening, whenever something is proposed, you really want to make sure that you push it through all the possible channels and that you get as many eyes as possible to it.
We hear a lot about the institutions getting into staking ETH. How does the evolving regulatory landscape in crypto impact the Lido project and staking?
Well, it's not my expertise, as I'm a protocol relations contributor, so I can't really provide comments or any like meaningful information there. However, as I mentioned previously, education is the most important part here. We do also have that there are also legal contributors in Lido DAO, and pretty much every solution is compliant, and there are no specific regulations at the time that address this specific type of software, which is taken middleware on blockchain. So yeah, it's pretty much that. And at this point, all of us are following closely all of the developments in the regulatory landscape.
Have you guys seen like a bunch of interest from institutions like in staking large quantities of ETH, like hedge funds and stuff like that?
Yes, we have. So again, like there are clients, institutional clients that are more familiar with Web3 and would be able to kind of understand what are the implications, what are their requirements to engage with staking in any way of staking. But also, if we are talking about institutions that are not non-Web3 native, then there's a lot more concerns raised about the regulatory landscape, because we are talking about TradFis. The processes are super long, super thorough, and for them, basically, we need to create frameworks. But the first step is actually, and this is what we are doing now, is to communicate with them, to see what are the actual needs, so we can construct a system together that works for both of us. So it's a process that involves multiple different stakeholders, not just Lido contributors, not just institutional clients, but also regulators. So we can all kind of meet somewhere in the middle where it works for all of us.
Earlier, you mentioned ST-ETH and its ability to be used in other blockchain platforms and DeFi and stuff like that. How is Lido approaching interoperability with different blockchains, and like what are the plans for future integrations?
So that's a really interesting topic. That's something where I'm heavily involved as a member of Lido's informal network expansion work group. So Lido staking is only available on Ethereum mainnet. That might change in the future with layer 2s, but it's still not changing. It will probably require an upgrade of the core protocol, and to do that, we need to put a lot of brain power to make something that will be generally usable for different networks and solutions. So what is currently happening, and what started with Arbitrum and Optimism, is only expanding of rep staked ETH. It's staked ETH, it's wrapped. So for those who are not familiar, there are two versions of staked ETH. Staked ETH is rebasable, which means that if you hold it every day in your wallet, you will actually see the balance change with the rewards that are coming in, which is super nice in terms of user experience. I think it's superior asset, but unfortunately, it's not really compatible with majority of DeFi protocols. So for that use case, wrapped ST exists. So you can take any ST, you can wrap it, and that one is non-rebasable. So what is happening is that the balance stays stable in your wallet, but the value is actually growing. And what we are currently doing as a network expansion work group is trying to satisfy a demand DeFi for wrap staked ETH in different ecosystems. So we are talking about different layer 2s, like Arbitrum and Optimism were like a great showcase, initially proof of concept, but showcase now with very deep integrations and liquidity. Recently, wrapped ST also expanded to Base. There was also a ZK Sync proposal this month. Unfortunately, it didn't go in the regular voting cadence, so it didn't manage to reach the quorum, but the proposal will be restarted in about 15 days. So we are looking at multiple different layer 2 networks by the end of the year, hopefully. And what we are trying to do there, and why do I even want to reach these new networks with wrapped ST, is to open up new access points for users, to allow for cheaper transactions, to reach certain protocols that are exclusive on new networks, which might provide great utility for staked ETH.
Sounds like there's a lot to look forward to. Jakov, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you feel is super important for our viewers to know?
Yes, I mentioned it briefly in the beginning when we were talking about professional node operators, when we were talking about security. Since my focus is mostly DeFi and network expansion, obviously I spoke more about it. But what is extremely important for the process of decentralization, for the general robustness of the system, is the upcoming simple DVT module that is currently in the testnet phase. What does it mean? That means that Lido will onboard 200 new node operators during the next year through DVT programs with SSV and OBOL. That also now includes solo stakers. So it's not only meant for the onboarding process will be different. It's not only onboarding professional node operators through waves and applications. It's lowering the barrier to entry for being a participant in validating Ethereum. What is really important to mention here for the robustness of the system, for those who are not really familiar about how DVTs are functioning, basically DVTs are meant to kind of reinforce the base layer of staking protocol by splitting the operators and validators. So you have a validator that needs to hold 32 ETH, that still does not change. But then you have multiple operators behind that one validator that are actually producing blocks and verifying attestations, which means that in case one of the operators shuts down or does something bad, that will not impact the entire system. So the entire system will not be slashed, which generally creates way less likelihood that ST holders will experience negative rebates.
Can you give us like the social media links and the website and everything, so that if our viewers want to keep up to date with what's going on in the Lido community, they can do so?
Sure. The website is very simple. It's lido.fi, Twitter, Lido Finance. If you want to reach out to me directly, if you want to chat about network expansions or anything DeFi related or anything else, I can be your proof of person for contact. You can reach out to me by Telegram or Twitter, and that would be DeFi Jakov with Y. So it's DeFi YACO.
Perfect. Well, Jakov, thank you so much for coming to the show and letting me ask you so many questions about the Lido protocol. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me. It was really fun.